Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matthew Siegel. I'm the Executive Director of the Lexington Arts and Crafts Society. Welcome to our virtual opening of the 11th biennial exhibition, State of Clay, which is Best of Massachusetts Ceramic Artists. A year plus, a year in the waiting because of COVID, but here we are. It's been an absolute joy to work with Alice Abrams and Joan Karsha, the organizers of State of Clay. It's a tradition of a collaboration between State of Clay and the Lexington Arts and Crafts Society. And it's a privilege to have this work in our newly renovated Molly Harding Nye Gallery. A year ago, standing or sitting in this gallery with carpeted walls and stained and crumbling ceiling tiles, I could not have imagined that the gallery, work in the gallery would look this good. So thank you to State of Clay. And now I'd like to introduce Joan Karsha.
Hello. This is not what I'm supposed to say, but I have to say it because here we are on a virtual journey here. And when we started the State of Clay, if we had to contact any of our potters, we had to dial and do long distance and pay for the long distance phone call. Those are days past. I do want to thank the LexArt for 24 years of supporting the State of Clay. And without this help, and without the help, well, here we go, okay. Without the help of all of our guild members, this show would not happen. We're deeply indebted to them and thank them for their generosity of time, spirit, and creativity. Special thanks to a few of our members, Saida Adaji, our graphic designer, Tracy Fisher, a publicity person, as well as our Instagram and Facebook person, Maria Caldas, our web designer, who I realized after she has spent so much time doing all of this, that she doesn't sleep at night at all. And I want to thank Prasad Despande for putting this virtual show together, Terry and Brian from the Lexington Community Media Center, and LexArt's own Lori, Jarek, Roberta, Louise, and Wayne for all of their help, and especially for the show and especially for LexArt itself. I want to thank Chase as well. He is the new office administrator and he did a lot helping to put this show together. And I want to thank our new executive director, Matthew, for his insight and expertise while setting up this wonderful juried show. Last but not least, I want to thank all of you artists who have applied, who have rejected, who have applied from 24 years ago to now. The number of people is phenomenal that we get, and we're just happy that this is successful. So thank you, all of you. And now I'm going to pass you to Alice Abrams.
Hi, everybody. They've kind of said everything I was going to say, but I'll throw in a few fun facts. We started the show in 1997. We've had 11 of them, and 2 of them have been invitationals down at the Fuller Museum, Craft Museum in Brockton. Obviously, COVID gave us a delay, but it didn't stop us. And our artists were willing to put everything on hold and see what would develop. So what developed was 1 year later, here we are. We have 2 changes to the show this year. Matthew mentioned our new gallery space, which we're very proud to be in. And the gallery space here even has a new little gift shop connected to it called Gallery to Go. I'll try to turn the camera so you can see it. You'll see the lights in the background lighting up those wooden shelves. Come shopping here, it's great. All right. The other change is obviously a virtual reception, which is something new to all of us. Believe me, new to all of us. But the rest of the show is staying intact. with our signature traditions. We remain devoted to displaying the talent of Massachusetts clay artists. Over 150 people applied to this show and 62 were chosen. We've also kept our very popular People's Choice Award, where you get the chance to be a juror and vote for your favorite piece. So when you come see the show, don't forget to do that. Your vote counts, and the winner will get a prize and be posted on our website at the end of the month. But our most important tradition is our artist reception, where everybody gathers and meets and talks to the juror. We've been able to keep that tradition going through Zoom. And tonight we do have our juror in attendance. So hello to Julia Galloway, coming in from Montana, far away. Hi, Julia.
Hi there, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name's Julia. I identify as she, her, and I'm coming to you from Missoula, Montana, which is in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. I'm so happy to be here. I so enjoyed seeing all your work, and it was very, very difficult choices. And I hope you really enjoy the show that we pulled together. I was so impressed by the quality of the work. I really enjoyed the process of selecting. Thanks for having me.
Julia is going to talk to us more later, and she's going to announce the award winners. But first, we're going to have a tour of the gallery. And if you have questions for Julia, we'd appreciate that you put them on the chat. Before we begin our tour, however, we want to give a special nod to one of our artists, Joanna Mark, and her box, which is called number 3. She packed this so carefully that she can't find it. And we could not locate it before the filming, and we're still waiting for her to find it. You'll see it if you go to our website, The State of Clay, or if you go to the LexArt website. So do that for Joanna. She's heartbroken not to be here. And now, by way of Lex Media, we would like to have you join us on a tour. And don't touch the things the way I do when I'm going through it. Welcome to the 2021 State of Clay, an exhibit of contemporary ceramics hosted by the Ceramics Guild at LexArt, formerly known as Lexington Arts and Crafts Society. The mission of our show is to put a spotlight on the Massachusetts clay community and to share with you what's happening in the studios of clay artists across the Commonwealth. And we're very proud and indebted to have our show presented in the brand new Molly Harding Nye Gallery, which was gifted to LexArt through the generosity of Molly and Joe Nye. Come on in, let's see the show. Dighton Abrams has brought us a mixed media piece of porcelain, stoneware, insulation foam, wood, and steel. He's calling our attention to the environment and the challenge of climate change. You'll note that the legs are steel, but I think Dighton is wanting us to know that we stand on fragile legs. Jeremy Ayers has brought us 3 sets of mugs. They're beautifully crafted, and they're a playful set of duos. Bruce Armitage is a sculptor of people. One of his models was named Lisette, and he wrote it on the bottom of the piece. Bruce uses terracotta and velvet understains to bring color and warmth to his hand-modeled pieces. Paula Barry lives on Cape Cod, where she loves to collect stones along the beaches. She throws pots, burnishes them, and then she takes her collection of stones and she finds the ones that will fit exactly into the grooves. She loves that process of collecting and selecting. Mary Barringer is a functional potter living in Western Massachusetts. She's a hand builder who is engaged with the process of investigation of the possibility a pot can become when you change scale, when you look at detail and change that, and also what the proportion does to the shape. Anne Boyajian is drawn to portray slightly abstracted, fantastical worlds filled with animals. She uses terracotta clay. She builds up her surfaces with sgraffito and underglaze painting, bringing her skills as an illustrator onto her work. She's also brought us a cat planter.
Andrea Brown's polychrome bowl number 24 shows us what control and spontaneity can do together. Her glaze technique is a pouring of 3 different colors and glazes across the surface. She values spontaneity, and she has to be spontaneous to do this, but she also has to be very controlled. Jody Burr has created loose ends. These terracotta pillows are hand-built with ground layers applied in ceramic terra sigillata and stains, and then multiple post-firing layers added to the surface in a variety of mixed media, including gouache, pencil, encaustic, and cold wax. Eimer Cook brings a sense of gesture, stance, and movement to all his sculptural work. The different tones on the surface are created by a single glaze sprayed at different depths of thickness. Bill Kravis created this piece that he calls Reality, Season 1, as if it was a TV show. He started it on the first day that Trump was inaugurated, and through the year, he created headlines on each mug for 13 months until he ended up with a very tiny one at the end. This piece is called We Used to Watch the Sunset by Erin Blackwell. It's a basket made of coils, varying her thicknesses, pushing, stretching. She shapes each basket uniquely from the rest. Lisa Dolliver throws on the potter's wheel. She's created a porcelain pot with a swirl pattern by adding oxide into the porcelain clay. She calls this piece Busy Being Born because it spoke to her of birth and renewal. Helen Duncan calls this piece What Remains. We see inside her detail work, all hand-built, a very complex shape, covered with a matte charcoal glaze. It feels great to hold. Dara Bowden's recent work has focused on patterns, which she creates with stamps and monoprints in clay. They each are hand-built with terracotta clay and are functional. And she puts a surprise on the back. Naked clay makes you want to touch it because it's so smooth to the fingertips. This untitled piece by Larry Alardo are tiles cut from one gigantic slab, which he has sliced into different parts and fired in different cans to provide the different tonal surfaces that raku can do. Alice and Elia's sculpture often deals with uncertainties, people having problems and needing to hold on to hope to overcome their trouble. She's built this man, covered him with acrylic paint. When she built him, she had to hollow him out, cut him into pieces, and reassemble him. And now there he is, holding on to hope. 30 years ago, Marie Amori used to design kimonos. When she found her calling in clay, she brought her wax resist technique to create the circles that she loves to make on her pieces. This is from her circle series, red, black, metallic. Hollis Engley created this piece on Cape Cod in a wood kiln. He left it in the coal box for over 24 hours because he wanted to see what kinds of results would happen when you leave a piece in for that long. There's a lot of ash, and cracking was natural. He knows it's considerably less perfect than the rest of his work. The mark of the kiln has turned it into a completely different kind of object. 2 tiny Kuranuki cups by Alicia Fessenden. Kuranuki means that they are carved out of a solid block of clay. That's how she got the interior empty. The glazing technique is the result of being fired in a soda kiln. Lobster Bouquet by Jackie Fisher. It shouldn't surprise you where it was made. In Maine, of course, where Jackie was attending a workshop at Haystack. It's made of paper clay, it's oxidation fired, and she used underglazes and glazes for her finishing touches. Sarah Fine Wilson is an artist and a teacher who focuses mainly on sculpture. She calls this piece tumbling because the forms twist, drape, and tumble over each other, creating mindscapes and landscapes for us. Jean Garrison has created The White City, a ceramics gallery. It's not only a sculpture, but a toy. She wants people to be able to move the pieces around and alter them, play with them. For the purposes of the exhibit, we've had to anchor them in place with museum wax. So don't try it. Pam Gorgone made this piece called Double Flute. It's a new body of work for her. She's always concentrating on simplicity and refinement in her work. She says this new body is giving her some percolating thoughts about going in different directions. Let's see what she does with it. Octopus Pot by Nan Hamilton. She's always been captivated by surface design and the curvature of the pot. In her animal imagery, she likes to make sure that the animal can wrap around the entire piece and looks like it wrapped itself. She has another piece in the show called Polar Bear. I'll let Arthur speak for himself. He says, throughout my life, I've always been attracted to things, people, and places that are over the top. In this piece, which he calls a big ass coil pot, it's also called Boston Pride. He's used architectural elements, found objects, and underglaze transfers. This second piece by Arthur is called Boston Buoy. He uses a lot of glaze and lets it drip to give a kind of a water effect of being in the ocean. It's in the shape of a buoy. Here we are with Erica Hood's Honey Bee Plate. You have to look close to appreciate the beauty of it. The detail of the little bee and the tiny circles that she's applied to the wet clay. They have a wonderful feel under your finger as your finger moves across the shiny glaze and hits the small, gentle bumps. She's used a wet transfer technique in black underglaze, but she's done the whole thing by hand. Recoil is a partial installation of a much bigger piece that was installed and commissioned by the Indianapolis Museum of Art. Stamped into the barrel of each gun is an opposing view about the gun debate. Recoil seeks to start a conversation about guns and gun violence. He has a gun here that for you to pick up and think about when you come see the show. Mary Kenny is displaying Camel Couple. Her sculptures of animals focus on moments of companionship, love, physical comfort, and care for one another. Note the eyelashes and the sweet little hump hats that she's put upon the seated female camel. Maxine Hugon has wheel thrown this leaves vase. Her patterns are carved by hand. Her carving is a whimsical interpretation of English arts and crafts patterns. Talk to Me, a sculpture by Becky Kravitz. It celebrates the beauty of human interaction. Earthenware, paper clay, oxidation, cold wax on a steel base. Jeok Lee is inspired by Korean folk painting. Gardens of Happiness is a prayerful wish for prosperity. Samantha Lukacs with Tall Lidded Jar. It's not as tall as I thought it would be. Follow the line and look inside. Perseus by David McCoy. Its powerful, reaching form made him think of the great Greek hero, Perseus. Tim Mitchell with his piece called A Monk Swimming. If you want to know the reason why he called it that way, come to the show and read about him in the artist's book. Wood-fired, rough texture, architectural details which reflect his background as an architect. Alluvium, a piece of Royal English porcelain sculpted by Dan Molyneux. He's best known for his geometrically inspired sculptures. A Taxonomy of Sorts by Judy Mutzkin. 3 of her boxes in a series of 12, all containing handmade stones in clay and porcelain, and then sorted meticulously into slide boxes. 2 porcelain forms by Lauren Nauman. The ceramic form starts as a straight cage of wet clay, and it finds its own shape while in the kiln. Being porcelain, it moves under the high heat of the kiln, slumping downwards, and you never know what the result will be. Baby Melon Pot with Bee by Elizabeth Noonan. So fragile are these tiny creatures. Big Old Gal by Claudia Olds Goldie. She makes a lot of strong-looking women. This one has a body tattoo covering in the front of her and in the back of her. The Proposition by Andrea Olmsted. Andrea is a sculptor who grew up in the humid Florida panhandle. Once, when she was a little girl, her uncle placed her on top of a picnic table while he lured away an alligator. Her subject matter has always been the plight of young girls and the challenge they face becoming women. Turtle Landscape by Stephanie Osser. It's made from translucent porcelain, which she pours over a plaster slab in which she has carved a bas-relief illustration. When the LED light is turned on, the image glows. Francine Ozarico's piece has a title that's very apt. It's called One Vase, Two Views, because each side has a different picture. She says, I've always enjoyed playing one side of a piece against another, either with opposite imagery or of something totally different. Frank Ozarico is sharing one of his series called Imaginary Vases. The sculptural form changes dramatically when viewed from the front or from the rear. Gem Bowl by Julie Peck. Julie builds with thick coils and slabs, which allow her to carve designs with patterns of strong definition. She stretches the bowl outwards for further accentuation of the design. Sayaka Rawisa created this wheel-thrown stoneware bowl. Her gift is her ability to carve intricate designs with sgraffito technique. Note the back, as beautiful as the front. Susan Richards has been working on a shelf series. This is a piece from it called Bird to Bird. She's often inspired by children's stories. Tilla Roadman makes functional work meant for everyday use. She draws on her pots like she would draw on paper, covering her interior with marks and designs and bringing them to the outside as well. This slab sculpture by Harris Rosenblum is called A Field Trip Past the Oil Rigs. The textural elements remind him of a field trip he took while growing up. He wants to use the earth as its own language and has developed special glazes to experiment with. Melanie Salisbury loves the face and the figure. These are two of her favorite saints, Saint Agatha and Saint Apollonia. You'll have to come around to the back side to enjoy the whole piece. Jane Saunders has created a piece called Nice Day to Be in the Water. She likes to put humor and irony into her pieces. Go to the book and read her artist statement. It says, "Welcome to Cape Cod." Suzanne Stumpf has created a diptych wall sculpture called Dirale Morning and Evening. She took a trip to Iceland, saw a beautiful peninsula called Dirale. She captured the look of it in the morning and in the evening with her glazes and with her clay. Welcome to Ancient Rome by Megan Sullivan. She calls these pieces Female Icon 3 and Female Icon 4. Sue Wadowski and her piece Oval Vessel with Inlay and Torn Edge. It's a piece she did in a wood-fired kiln with natural ash and a Chino glaze. Bowl 1 by Roseanne Snyderman. The unfurling nature of this piece exemplifies the imperfect symmetry found in our natural world. Here we are in front of Gender Bender by Shelley Weinstein. Listen to the sound of all the found objects that she's included in this piece. Broom bristle hair. The Gender Bender is meant to be androgynous, neither male nor female. Where do I fit in is a question many people ask today. Eric Wilson has made a functional stoneware bowl that can sit on your table or serve as an art piece when you hang it on the wall. Come up close when you view Colleen Williams's two pieces, New Arrival and When I Grow Up. They deserve a close eye because the detail work is very intricate and worth studying. Delaney Wise is a ceramicist of many dimensions. Not only does she make functional work, but sculptural work as well. Here's her piece, Tap to Center. When you say the title, it makes you want to tap it together and wish you could. Green Spiral Wall Sculpture by Joan Zagrabelny. She was inspired by the spiraling out of galaxies, and she calls this piece a gesture on a cosmic scale. Holly Curcio has two pieces in the show, Flock and Dream Team. She considers her artwork narrative and autobiographical. Creating figurative sculpture gives her a chance to communicate with the subtleties and processes of being human. Thank you for joining this tour with us, and we hope you will come see the show in person at the gallery. It will be on through June 13th, and we'd love to have you come. If you can't see it, you can see it online at thestateofclay.com.
Julia. Hi, Julia. It's time
Hi
for
there.
you.
Well, wasn't that wonderful to see all that work? Should we go ahead and do the awards?
Now, okay,
Now?
take it away.
Do the awards now? Fantastic.
Sure.
Hey, no peeking. So hi there, you guys. I'm so excited to announce the awards today. It really was fabulous looking at all this work, and awards are not easy to give out. And so let's go ahead and get started here. You know, I think during a show is hard. I think you want to try to pick the best work, but you also want to pick work which is adventurous or developing in a really exciting direction as encouragement. And so that's what I was working on here. And first I wanted to give an honorable mention to Alice and Ilya's piece called Crawl. You know, I thought this was an extremely emotive piece. I felt that it really got me in my gut, and how this figure is so hunched over and curled up, and that little fist, that's what kind of kills me, is this little fist down here just curling up, and you know, it's so painful to kind of crawl on your knuckles. So it seems so emotive in a piece of our time. We're living in a complicated time, and this piece seemed to really capture something about it. I also gave an honorable mention to this piece, Dear Allay, Morning and Evening by Suzanne Stumpf. And I thought, honestly, it just was beautiful. It is sort of understated and calm, and it presents its ideas so clearly without tons of ego, right? Like just this sort of beautiful lightness of being of the artist showing us what they experienced. I also loved how the landscape pieces were put on top of the tile. So they really floated up on the top, and it made me think quite a bit about sort of our current environmental situation in floating landscape or floating ice. I also wanted to give an honorable mention to this piece by Jane Saunders, A Nice Day to Be in the Water. You know, I think it's ironic and funny and also tragic, sort of, you know, this, sometimes artwork is so serious, and this piece, when I saw it, I just laughed out loud, and it's sort of ridiculous, like how the person is made is a little bit like a gingerbread person, kind of a little fantasy, floating on this a little bit too small raft with quite a large shark underneath, just waiting in tow. And I enjoyed this piece because I thought it was sort of, I thought it was funny, but also poignant, right? And I really enjoyed that. And also the use of the wall was very clever here. Jeremy Ayres, these cups, you know, I thought they're really lovely. These friendship mug sets. There was 3 different sets, 6 cups in here. And I thought how the decoration moved around the form and then went under the handle was really beautiful. The relationship of how the surface ties the handle to the form, I thought was really articulate, clear, and thoughtful. They also look tremendously useful in that great way that these mugs are. But I think mostly I was responding to this sense of kind of intense modernism on the surface, the sort of satin and shiny glazes coming together, and that this decoration on the surface is very poignant, similar to the negative space inside the handle. Tom Hubbard, I wanted to give him a Juror Award for this piece called Recall. And Tom, hats off to you for really jumping into a big subject for today, a big political, sort of very sensitive subject for today. And what I liked was that the idea was as strong as the work itself, and that these are beautifully made. The craftsmanship is impeccable. And the thoughtfulness of hanging the guns off the bullets, I thought was really a good move. And I wanted to support this work because this is a very important issue for today. But the piece, I think, is also larger than the issue itself. I loved that Tom had that piece on the pedestal. I'm sorry that I'm not able to touch it because my understanding is that these are solid. So that would be quite heavy. It would give it quite heft. And that would really, you know, add this sort of textile part to the piece. So I thought this piece was really worth calling some extra attention to. This bowl, Tilla Rodman. Well, honestly, what I love about this bowl is how when they were decorating this bowl, I wanted to give this a Juror Award because when they were decorating this bowl, they would put their brush or whatever tool they were using to put that colorant on the surface. And then they would kind of, you know, dot, and then they would sort of recharge that implement, brush or whatever they're using. And I loved how they went ahead and let it fade out a little bit. And so that some of the dots are larger and darker, and then they kind of get light and ephemeral as the brush runs out of stain. And I loved how that represents the passage of time. And there was also something about it that really reminded me of Braille in this sort of other kind of visual language. These are two kinds of visual languages. And also, this piece I liked very much from the beginning, but when Alice and Joan walked me through the gallery and picked up all the pots and showed them to me and showed me details of the sculpture. But the underside of this bowl, as you guys saw in the video, was well tended, right? It was really beautiful. And I appreciate the artist going just all out and paying attention to every part of this piece. I thought it was definitely worth a Juror Award. I also, William Kravis, Reality, Season 1. Well, this is a big piece, right? It's a quote from every day of off the cover of New York Times of something that President Trump said. And a piece like this takes some real dedication, right? To make this piece, to think about these quotes, to put it all together. And I really appreciate the depth that it took to make this, to make all the things, to make the decals, to put the letters on the surface. I mean, I think technically, like, wow, conceptually, wow. And also, I thought the craftsmanship was lovely, especially this shelf. You know, originally this piece was much, much larger, which you can see here on the bottom right. But this shelf was built perfectly for these cups to go from large to small. You know, it's thoughtful, careful. I really appreciated that. This is a piece of our time, right? And I like that the artist is showing its experience to us. Well, Lauren, you're a risk taker here. Lauren Nauman, this is pretty impressive. I think that I could instill a lot of concept into this, but really it's just clever, and it is letting the clay do what clay does, right? So this is usually straight up and down, and then it sinks while it's firing because the clay is getting so viscous during the firing process. And I love that sort of risk taking, and I love the delicacy of this, and for something which is completely open and loose, it seems tremendously intimate to me. And I also love that somebody would be crazy enough to actually do this, right? Would be willing to spend so much time, careful, cutting, and then firing with such a high chance of failure. You know, I just love that sort of just tremendous risk taking. And Lauren, good for you, right? Crazy gal. It's really fabulous. Geok Lee. I thought the use of color here was fabulous. And I wanted to give this piece an award so much because there's something about that it feels aged. So it's using color in a way that is showing us time. And this is, you know, influenced maybe Korean, historical Korean, but it also reminded me so much of early Pennsylvania Dutch. And I love sort of how early work by different cultures can look so similar. Yes. And I just so appreciated seeing that. And I think this use of color is somehow bold and subtle at the same time. How can that be? I don't know, but I think it does seem true. There's something about how this sort of color is put on and then scraped off again that gives it this beautiful sense of time passage. Itself as a piece, but then also so clearly quoting history is also another sort of sense of time passage. Geok, very beautiful piece. Nice job. Nice job. This is The Proposition by Andrea Olmsted. And there was a lot of good sculpture in the show, a tremendous amount of good sculpture in the show. It was very hard to select one. But I picked this piece because it had so much tension in it. Like it was very, very decorative and then completely narrative, like those sort of waves that are maybe underneath this boardwalk or something that are carved into this paper clay, which is not easy to do. But those sort of waves had this real sense of decoration to them. And then this tension between quite a ferocious animal, the alligator, and this sort of Annabelle Southern figure. Is a sort of anxiety producing seeing them like this. And then over time, there's something so loving about it, right? It's sort of a predicament that might not be bad or it might be bad. So I really responded to, first of all, the beauty of it, the beauty of her and how her dress is sort of cut across in the front and she has the beautiful sort of Southern gloves on. And then the alligator is so sort of, there's a crudeness to it in that way that alligators are so dinosaur-esque, right? So some is just that it's simply a beautiful sculpture, but then there's these sort of undercurrents of maybe compatible opposites, like very beautiful, very daring, very soft, very frightening, sort of opposing ideas here. So I thought this sculpture really was quite fabulous. And this plate, Misty Spring, I thought there's a lot of nice pots in the show, but I thought this one by Sayaka Rawizi. I'm so sorry, I missed that last name. Misty Spring plate. You know, I just think it's beautiful. I love how the pattern sort of goes in and out of being clear and not clear. And it does have that sense of mist and time passage, and there's real depth. Like you could swim right into that plate. Like I think you could just move into it. And how the plate is lobed in that kind of classic historical fashion. So the plate is also a flower in itself with flowers on the surface. Also, the underside of this is decorated with great care, which I appreciate being the one who does the dishes in my household. So I think that this plate worked for me in many ways. One was just the subtlety of it and the beautiful, beautiful use of the material, letting the glaze melt, letting the viscosity of the material do its thing. But then also, oddly, how these, the composition of the large flower sort of to the top left and then the smaller flower to the right, and then the even maybe just bud down on the bottom. It really looks like nourishment, like these are some kind of foods there. So it has this sort of beautiful sense of fullness and buoyance through those those three different primary decorative areas. Really, really beautiful, beautiful plate. Sayaka, really gorgeous. Nice job, really nice job. And then I have to say, last year we have the best in show, and this was not an easy selection. This was not an easy thing to do. There was a lot of very strong work in the exhibition, and you know, it made me proud. I grew up in Boston, and so knowing that these people lived in the Massachusetts, it just made me so happy. And but I thought this piece by Jody Burr was extremely timely in a few different ways. First, before that, I would have to say that this work is unique to Jody. I haven't seen a ton of work that looks just like this. The work that I've seen that looks like this has also been hers. And so there was a familiarity when I saw this. Like, I didn't really know who made it when I first looked at it. And I thought, oh, that is an original voice on that work. And then it turned out to be hers, and it is. The work has a tremendous sense of contemporary art and unique voice to it. But I think what really struck me the most about this work is that all of these images seemed very isolated. Even though it's a pack of four, right? It's 4 tiles together. The images are not bleeding into each other. They're barely having a conversation with each other, and they seemed in quite a sense of solitude when I'm looking at this work. And it just reminded me so much of this past year that our country has been struggling with, and the sense of tremendous isolation that so many of us have felt during the pandemic. So I appreciated this work. I thought it was beautiful. It was a little bit ephemeral. I thought the artist's voice was incredibly clear and unique. And I thought the subject matter was timely. Even though it's very abstract, somehow abstract, but with identifying parts to it. It's maybe some kind of narrative. I don't need to know what the narrative is. Mostly this sense of solitude seems quite profound to me. So I think that is, congratulations, Jody. It's a beautiful piece. And you guys, congratulations to everybody that received awards. And also thank you everyone who applied.
So now you can jump in.
So hi.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. That was quite an eloquent recitation of the awards. Much appreciated. Before we go to the chat to take questions, I wanted to jump the line and ask you a few questions of my own, if I may. So I was not familiar with the work that had been chosen for the show until it started to arrive in the gallery, till the artist started to drop it off or ship it in, and we unpacked it. And I was struck by the range of work that was represented all over the map. Functional wear, utilitarian wear, hand-built, wheel-thrown, sculptural work, figurative, abstract, narrative work, humorous work, political work, some work that was obviously took extreme technical proficiency, and other work not so much, that was sort of relying on the kiln for, you know, the accidents that might occur. And I wondering if you might comment on your criteria. As I heard you talk about the awards, it seemed to me that you're quite taken with process as much as the product. But I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about your criteria for choosing the work that's in the show.
Sure, you bet. It's a good question. And I think there's a few different parts there, Matthew, actually, that I would dig into. And first is I'll sort of address the process part. You know, as the video was going, I was looking through and seeing who was on the chat. And I recognized a lot of the names from people in the show. So I knew there was a lot of makers that were cluing in. And makers love to talk about process. We certainly do. So I just thought that would be a great way to kind of address some of those things. So that had, you know, some influence on what I selected to talk about the work. Some is that it's an all ceramic show, So that leads me to talk about process a little bit more as well. And in the larger jurying, I think there's a few things I was thinking about. Some was like how interesting it is to have a really regional show and how important it is to show a little bit of what everybody's doing. So I wanted to select sort of the best of different areas. So I wanted some pots, some sculpture, some figurative, some abstract, some, you know, I was kind of thinking about all the different things that are being made today. Large scale installation. We talked quite a bit about how many guns could we really fit in the gallery, what would fit there. So I think that this is an arts center, and I wanted the show to be educationally based. And I wanted there to be a large enough variety of work that if somebody came in there with somebody who was not a maker, they could sort of say, well, this process was, or this process is, or these ideas are, or these ideas are. So the wide range of work was really to sort of address that it's in an art center and sort of the best of the different things being made today. And most of the work is tremendously contemporary. And the ones that are not quite as contemporary as others are work that would maybe be familiar, you know, familiar in a way that I think is important and inclusive.
Thank you. Also, I was wondering if you might comment on for people that are, you know, that are listening in, who may have not curated a show of their own before, not juried a show or curated a show, how curating a show, putting together a show might change your approach or your thinking about your own work.
So Matthew, that's a big question. I think that's a pretty big question, but I'll try to hone in on some things that I'm particularly interested in, part of that question. And one is, you know, showing work. There's so many ways of showing work right now, right? We can show work through Instagram, through an online gallery, through a gallery in real life like yours, you know, on Facebook, on websites, museums, different kinds of galleries, art centers, your own home. You know, there's so many ways of showing work today that I think that if when we're making work, we have a sense of where it's going to go, that could help influence us what we make. And people make work for all reasons. Some make work as it's a private meditation. Some people make work to have larger statements about the world. Some make work because it's how they understand the world. Some make work because they want to be part of a community. Some make work to sell work for money. Some, you know, so there's all these different reasons, and usually more than one or two reasons, why people would make work. And I think that that sort of sense of intent helps people figure out the best ways to show. So I think in this setting, right, this is a beautiful art center, a gorgeous gallery, showing work that's from a specific part of the country. It makes sense to have sort of a large variety of things that represent a lot of the population. If someone's making work and it's sort of self-expression and they're just making it for themselves, probably just showing it to their family on their mantle would be appropriate. Sometimes you make work and you have shows because you're building name recognition. So that's a different kind of show, do you know? So I think that what I like about the work here is that all of this work is sort of from different parts of the field, and then it can kind of show off. It's like a extremely generous banquet, right? This is a visual banquet of variety, and it might make sense. But I also think if people have a sense of where they want their work to go, that helps them figure out how to make it and what to do with it. Because not all work belongs in a gallery. Some work belongs right in my kitchen. That's it. And some work maybe belongs, you know, somewhere else. So I think that there's a very intimate and clear relationship between people's creative process, what and why they're making, and then how it enters the world. Does that answer your question?
That helps.
It helps. It only helps.
I'm going to give you one more object-specific question before we go to the chat. I wanted to ask you about your best of show choice, Josephine Burr's pillow Jody Burr's pillow piece. And what I thought I heard you say in so many words was that this work somewhat transcended the medium in your eyes. And I was wondering if you might comment on why that's such a hard pull for ceramists. Why, why is that? Why does that prove difficult to do? If you might comment.
So that's a really big question, honestly, Matthew. And I don't know about transcending the medium, but the medium is not the primary content in the material. Some pieces, it's a huge part of the content of the material. The piece with all the glazes melting, the content of that piece is all process, right? So I think that most people who work in ceramics, they want to make their work themselves. They love touching the medium, and they want to show you what they love about the medium, and that shows through their making process. So the material itself is a large content of the work, right? So I think that that's what I like about Jody Burr's piece is I can appreciate it as a ceramicist, but I don't actually need to know anything about the medium to understand some of the content in it. So for me, it's sort of working in both ways. And so I thought that that takes a depth that I appreciated. Now, I don't want to imply that material processes content is somehow, I do not think this is hierarchical evaluation. I just thought with Jody's piece that she was able to balance beautifully between these things.
That's lovely.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the answer. And now we are going to go to the chat and take questions from the audience.
Maria, do we have questions?
You have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we have a lot. So Maria, can you read some out?
Hi there. Okay, so we have a question from Bill Kravis. Do you feel like the COVID year will have any long-term positive effect on the field of ceramics? And have you had a productive year?
Sure, Bill. Well, I think two things really happened quite a bit during the pandemic. And one is I think that people maybe who were more in the hobby kind of part of our field might have had more time to work than before, and they were able to really concentrate and develop techniques or develop ideas, since maybe they were, if they had access to a studio, they were able to spend time in a studio in a different kind of way. So people who maybe had sort of a distant interest or were able to take classes in the summer or something like that, suddenly had much more time to explore this sort of creative part of them. So I think that maybe there's a new kind of appreciation in our field. I think that a huge thing has been that as galleries closed down, more and more artists sold their work online. And so that really ripped open all of the selling work directly. And I think we're trying to understand what our relationship with galleries are. So I think that was a big change. I think also, I think many craftsmen, since we're so dedicated to a sense of touch and material and process, that often we back away from things like Zoom. But I think we've really figured out how to use it and do like workshops online, doing gallery opens online. I think that's really opened us up quite a bit. I think, Bill, maybe those were the primary things. For myself, I was on sabbatical last spring, and the first spring of COVID, and I had all these plans to travel, and I couldn't. And what changed in my work is that I developed these new carving skills, and I'm making this body of work right now, which is a little bit labor intensive. And then after COVID, it became a lot labor intensive because I had much more time to focus on my work. So, Bill, did that answer your question? Great.
Okay, so
nice.
so we have 2 questions from We have a question from Carol Risman and one from Mary Lucy, and they're it's about the same thing. Do you see that, is there an actual New England or Massachusetts aesthetic? Is there something that you think distinguishes Massachusetts from the rest of the country in a particular style of pottery?
Well, I don't really, I think it's a little bit like pornography. I don't know it till I see it. I think it's a little bit like that, right? I think that often I can guess if somebody's from New England when I look at their work. But it's hard for me to put my finger on exactly what it is. Like the sculpture of the alligator, I knew that person maybe didn't grow up in New England, you know, but lives there now, I guess, for the show. But I think I don't really know it though I see it. I think historically, where a lot of the New England aesthetic is really rooted in kind of these Puritan, early European kind of roots. But that was a long time ago, and I think we've shed that. It's not a great answer for you, sorry.
That's okay. I'm not seeing any more questions on
excellent.
this chat, but
Okay.
we are actually exactly at 6:30. So thank you very much for all your insights.
You bet, you bet. I wanted to do one quick thing here at the end. Okay, Alice and Joan. So I just wanted to, this is the show itself, and I just love looking at all this work again. So I put it in this little PowerPoint, and I thought there was so many beautiful pieces, like Holly's piece called Flock. I thought was so sort of full of tension and energy, and Helen's piece, it was so hard to understand until I saw them pick it up. I thought that was very beautiful. And Larry, I haven't seen Raku that I've liked in a long time, and I think that your piece is pretty fabulous. And so good job on that. And also Nan, with these beautiful drawings on your surfaces. I loved these pots, Nan. I thought they were just really gorgeous. I wasn't totally sure why they were pottery, but I thought that your mark making was exquisite, just exquisite here. And I also thought these camels by Mary Kenny were so had such a sensitive touch, and they had this sort of real innocence to them that I so appreciated. In Tim's piece called A Monk Swimming, I have no idea what that title's about, but boy, is that a nice piece with these textures. I thought that was also just gorgeous. And Becky, no kidding, you can build. Becky, those are gorgeous figures. Keep going, those are great. And also Steve Murray, this bowl really surprised me how much I liked it. You know, when I saw the image, just like I see it here, I thought, yeah. And then when they picked it up in the gallery and they showed me the deep foot and the intimacy of it and the intimacy of the brushwork, I thought was just really exquisite. And Elizabeth, your little bowl pot there, your little bee pot up here just made me laugh. I thought it was so wonderful with those kind of spastic little wings up there. I thought it was just great. And Melanie, your two-sided, you know, this one with the saints. Geez, I really like that. I would love this if it was 5 feet tall. You know, I want to be able to see that whole thing in there. And I like, in my mind's eye, this bird flies through that hole all the time. It just loops right through there. I love that little forced narrative. And then I think that Colleen Williams, boy, can you decorate, my dear girlfriend. Those are gorgeous, gorgeous. And I think that this figurative piece is also really, really very lovely. You guys, I really enjoyed during this show, and it was a pleasure to work with Alice and Joan on it so much. If you were rejected, I encourage you to please, please, please apply again next year. I tried to adjust rejection very carefully in that letter, so if you threw it out, go ahead and go find it and read it again. And I think, you guys, on that note, I'm going to go back to my studio and work on these new pots that I'm making. It's very exciting, and I hope you get to really enjoy the show, and it's been great working with you.
Thank you, Julia. It's been great working with you, and it's been great hosting another State of Clay. We want to tell everybody to get on our mailing list if you want to get your reminder for the next State of Play, which will be in 2023. Not too long, far away. And get back to your studios. Let's get to work.
You got it.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.